Yes,
Thank
we
you.
are.
That's great. Okay, so welcome once again to our webinar for today. Fola, can I have my slides, please?
Can you see the shared screen?
No, I can't see it. Yes, I can. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome again to our June webinar. So, today's one is special. I like to talk about money as a parent, as an adult, and because I can understand the importance of actually looking beyond today for our children and ourselves. So today's webinar is about beyond the savings account, so smart ways to build your child's financial future. And I'm very excited to have our speaker, Kiki Harwood, with us this evening. And thank you so much for honoring our request to join us this Tuesday evening. And before I invite Kiki to speak, I would just like to introduce myself for those that do not know me, and also talk a little bit, introduce hand learning to some of our parents. And then Kiki will come on to speak to us. So my name is Lara Okpo. I'm a mom of two and I'm founder of Ant Learning, tuition provider of English, maths, science, and exam prep for children aged 3 plus to 16. Um, Actually, I'm quite excited about June because my son finished GCSE yesterday. So I am very, very excited that he was the one that actually encouraged me, not encouraged me by himself, but obviously it was because of him that Ant Learning was born 11 years ago, just to support his academic journey and also to empower other parents to know how to support their children. So at Ant Learning, we build academic foundations that allow capable children to excel confidently at school. And we do this by building foundational and advanced skill in learning to read for our younger ones, maths, English, science, and exam prep for children sitting exams like the 5 plus, the 7 plus, and the 11 plus. And the parents we work with are parents who think ahead, not because there is something wrong, not because, but because they understand that academic foundation actually shape a child's confidence for years to come. And parents that actually notice when their child is hesitating to read or when a maths work is very, very easy, knowing that actually my child can do a bit more. So one hand learning we believe that strong foundations matter, reading confidence. We want our children to have clear thinking, deep comprehension, and we couldn't have done it without parents that are thinking ahead, thinking about actually, I just don't want my child to be fine. I want them actually to excel at school without the pressure because they started early or they picked hesitation in their child's reading. So not because it's pressure, but because they want to prepare their children. And the outcome our children get is that they start reading early, they read confidently, they approach school with calm capability, and their parents feel something equally important, peace of mind and pride that they haven't left their child's education to chance. But yeah, today is not really about talking about maths and English at all. But before I hand over to Kiki, I just want to also use this opportunity to introduce our summer school program for children that have not experienced our services before and parents that would want their child to be gainfully engaged during the summer, either be it by plugging any academic gap or by looking ahead in the next academic year, or for children sitting the entrance exams come September or in the autumn time. So we've got a free taster session that your child can attend to experience the session either online on a Saturday morning or at our centers in Dartford and Southgate. We would love to have the children this summer because it's actually the highlight of our program on academic work over for the academic year. Summer holiday is always very fantastic. So we've got 3 weeks, Monday to Friday, You can actually, we don't mind. You can use us to plug your summer gap, summer childcare gap during the summer, and we will happily have the children to learn and also have fun of time with friends and family. So it is my honor to introduce to us Kiki Harwood this evening. Kiki is a qualified financial planner and a nominee for the Women in Financial Advice Award 2026 with a genuine passion for educating and empowering families to take control of their financial future. Kiki is the principal financial planner at Howard Lang. Kiki specializes in helping individuals and families build wealth through smart, accessible strategies. So please welcome this evening, Kiki Howard, to speak to us on how we can make our smart ways of how we can plan our children's future. Kiki, welcome. Thank you for honoring our invitation this evening.
Hi everybody, how are you doing? So before I start, let me just share my slide. Let me see if I can share my slide first. Oh, I can't do it. There we go. All right, you can see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. As Lara has said, my name is Kiki Harwood, financial planner for Harwood Land Financial Planning. So tonight we're going to talk about smart ways to build your child's financial future. So this is not a sales presentation. My aim is simply to give you practical ideas that you can take away and use immediately. Okay, so whether your child is a newborn, a teenager, or somewhere in between, there are things that you can start doing today that can make a significant difference to their future. So obviously it's going to be a bit interactive. So there'll be like polls, questions. So the questions when you answer is anonymous. So don't worry about, we're not going to know who's answering the questions, but it just kind of helps to understand where you guys are at and then where, I can help, So it'd be nice if you could all participate. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to talk about me, basically, when we start. So I'll just give you a rundown about me. So I I came here from Zimbabwe. So I'm originally from Zimbabwe, and I came here with two pairs of jeans and two t-shirts. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into it because we'll be here all night. But I work with individuals and business owners to make them informed about financial decisions. So my process to becoming a financial planner, so I've got more than 15 years in financial planning. However, I decided to start my own practice because I didn't see a lot of people of my color coming for financial advice. So I decided that I should start my own. So in order to do that, I went through to St. James's Place, who are one of the largest wealth management companies in the UK. And I went through them, and then I had to go through a process. I felt like I was on The Apprentice because I had to write a business plan, I had to be questions and all this. And then, when I got accepted, I was like, oh my God, a girl like me from Harare in Zimbabwe has kind of made it this far. And I thought, you know what, I want to change how people of my color can access financial advice because I feel like there isn't enough out there for that. So this is why I decided to start this journey, and I want to help as many people as possible. So I hope I'll be able to help you today. So anyway, I'm gonna talk about what we'll cover today. So basically, what we're going to cover is why planning for children matters, the impact inflation can have over time, how investment works, the power of compounding. We talk about junior ISAs. I'll talk about children's pensions, financial protection, estate planning, and of course, there'll be time for questions at the end. So, as I'm going along, if you have a question that pops in your head, just pop it into the chat. We won't look at questions till the end. So I hope that helps. Right. So I think we're going to start off with a poll. I think to start off things to see if anybody is paying attention. So I'm going to start with a poll before I go anywhere. So Fola, you okay to start with the poll? Okay, so how confident are you in managing your personal finances? So what you need to do is just click on your phone or on your laptop and then just answer the question so that, it kind of gauges where we're at. And then we'll share the answers so you can see. Um, okay, everybody has answered, I think. Thank you very much. Okay, so Paula's just going to share the results. So as you can see, like somewhat confident, not very confident, and very confident. So hopefully by the end of this, I'm hoping that, you'll be a little bit confident. Okay. I'm gonna take that out. Okay. So at least now I know where we are. Right. Um, where am I? So this is the basics of financial planning. So before we even talk about financial planning, we need to know where our money is going, right? Because obviously everybody knows about budgeting and stuff. So, oh my God, why is it not moving? Here we go. So you all understand where your monthly outgoings are going. Um, I'm sure everybody does this budgeting because I'm not going to go through it because I think everyone, this is kind of like a simple way of how you plan um, your investments and stuff before you can think about making any money, right? So this is just the basics about money. So you've got your living costs and stuff. Anyway, this is how you budget. You decide what you want to save for. You be honest about how you're spending money, budget for the year, not the month. So you work out your budget and keep budgeting it. So rebudgeting, and then your saving aims, right? So obviously these are the foundations. So before you start building wealth, you need to understand the money basics. So building wealth isn't about finding a magic investment. It's about creating good habits. So this means living within your means, having an emergency fund, managing debt sensibly, and then having clear goals like investing should sit on top of these like foundations. Okay. So I think I've got another poll. So where do you currently keep most of your savings? Interesting. Okay. Right. Thank you for answering. That's quite interesting. Because I've seen the majority have cash ISAs, only small percentages have investments. So by the end of this, so I'm going to share the results so you can see. Okay, I failed to share the results. Okay. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll be confident enough in how you can start saving. Okay. Right. I'm going to talk about having an emergency fund. So an emergency fund is basically before you think about investing, you need to have an emergency fund. Okay. So an emergency fund, basically you should have at least 3 to 6 months of your outgoing. So let's say, for instance, this is your essential outgoing. So like your mortgage, your council tax, your food bill and stuff. So let's say if your outgoings are £2,000 a month. So the general rule is you should have at least um 6 to 12,000 sitting in a savings account. So this is where, before you start thinking about investing, this is where your money should go into before you start investing. So that if you have an emergency, you don't dip into your investments that you want to invest. So you now go into this emergency fund. Okay. Right, so I'm now going to talk about the effects of inflation. So one of the biggest risks for long-term savings is inflation. So as you can see, inflation means that the cost of goods and services increases over time. So the challenge is that the money sitting in cash often grows slower than prices rise. So whilst the amount in your account must stay the same, what many that money can buy, what it can buy gradually reduces. So this is why we need to step away from leaving money in a savings account. And then, because this is what inflation does to your investments. I hope everybody's still with me. So let's say, I'll give you an example of inflation. So let's say if something costs £100 today, and then inflation, let's say, is average like 3% per year, and that same item could now cost you around £180 in 20 years. So that's why many people choose to invest for longer term goals rather than relying solely on cash savings. So, right, moving on. Oh God. So this is why we save for the longer term. So people always ask this point, like, how do I make my money work harder? You know, so the ways you can make it work harder is this is where investing comes in. So this is where obviously we want to know about. So I'm going to ask another poll. What is your primary reason for saving or investing? Okay, interesting. Nobody has an emergency fund. Okay. Most people have retirement, which is very good because you need to invest for your retirement, children's future, leaving a legacy a little bit. Emergency fund, I take it nobody has an emergency fund. Okay, interesting. Right, we'll just end that poll. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is, I don't know why it's not. So I'm going to talk about investing in shares. And before I do that, I'm going to talk about diversification. Then obviously it all makes sense. So diversification basically is about, I think, how can I put it? It simply means not putting all your eggs in one basket. So imagine you had all your money invested in one company and that company struggles. I think the example I like using is imagine if um, you have a shop and you sell raincoats. So on a rainy day, a lot of people are going to come to your shop and they're going to buy a lot of raincoats, right? However, if it's sunny, your shop is not going to make any money because nobody is coming to buy any raincoats. So this is where you think about probably selling sun cream or sun hats and sunglasses, because then when it's not raining and the sun comes out, then obviously you're going to make sales within the hats and sunglasses. So that's what diversification means basically. It's just when one thing is not making something, another thing is kind of boosting it. So therefore you want to put your money into different things. So it's more like you spread the cost, your money across evenly to different types of companies around the world and different types of investments. So the aim is just to eliminate risk. So that's how you eliminate risk. And then the aim is to avoid relying on a single investment. So like at the moment, most people have said they have like cash ISAs. So it's not really doing anything. It's going to be eroded by inflation. So you've not diversified your pot. It's just sitting into one thing. So you want to think about diversifying it and putting it in different things. Okay. I don't know. I think I've lost my slide for shares. Anyway, I'll move on. So shares represent ownership in a company. Let me go back to that actually. This is the one I was talking about. So they represent an ownership in companies. Is everybody with me so far? Am I going too fast? Hopefully not. Okay. So when companies do well, the value of their shares may increase. When they face challenges, share prices can fall. So this movement of up and down is called volatility. So what volatility means is it's not necessarily a bad thing because people hear volatility, they think, oh, it's a bad thing. So it's simply it's a normal behavior of investment markets. Okay, so the longer your investment time frame, the more opportunity you have to ride through those short-term fluctuations. I hope I'm making any sense. Okay, so I'm going to go to my favorite slide. So the power of investing, right? I'm going to ask a question. What do you think is life's most valuable commodity? For that, did we have a slide? Okay, I'll just go ahead. So the most valuable commodity, it's pretty much on the screen. It's time, you know. So time allows compounding to work. Time also allows investments to recover from setbacks. Time is what gives children a huge advantage, you know, because children have longer time to invest than we do. So I'm going to go for my favorite slide, which is the principle of compounding. Okay. So compounding is the process of which assets are earning from either capital gains or interest are reinvested to generate earnings over time. So it's basically your money makes more money on its own. So I'm going to ask my very interesting question that I would ask. So we're going to put a poll. So what would you rather have? You'd rather have 1p, which doubles every day, or would you rather get £50,000 every day for 30 days? Wow, okay. Interesting. So the question is, would you rather have 1p doubling every day for 30 days or get 50,000 every day for 30 days? Okay. So we have the majority saying they'd rather have £50 every day. Very interesting. Okay. So I'm going to show you why you don't want to have £50 doubling every day. So this is what happens. This is what compounding is, basically. So as you can see, the ones that went for 50,000 every day, you're going to have 1.5 million at the end. But the person that has 1p doubling every day, so this is the power of compounding. So when you leave your money to compound, even though you start with 1p, I know it starts off with a penny and then, you know, and then it starts off, it's not significant, but you end up with 5.3 million, which makes more sense. Why would you not want to compound? So your cash ISAs that are sitting in your bank account, that's what they're making. And then the person that's investing and is diversified in different share classes, you end up with the 5.3 million because you're diversifying your pot. And I think, you know, so the lesson is not about pennies. The lesson is about small amounts invested consistently over long periods can become surprisingly large amounts, even though they start small. So basically the aim is to start small. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So we have two people here. So we've got Anne and Belinda who invest, right? So Belinda invests more. She starts off, no, Anne invests £200 per month, while Belinda invests £400 per month, but she starts later on. So as you can see, Anne has about 14,000, over 14,000 more than Belinda because she started investing earlier. So it's about starting early, even though she started with a small amount, and then Belinda started 10 years later, putting double that, £400. But because Anne has had a long time for compounding, so she has actually more money, you know. So it's all about you start small. Don't think about, oh, I'll do it later, because most people think, oh, I'll do it later when I can pay more. But then it's about the compounding effect that allows you to have more money at the end than if you didn't, you know. So I'm just going to ask a poll question. So, because obviously, when do you think is the best time to start investing? I like how 100% is gone as soon as possible because you've been listening to what I've been saying. So you've gone to like, yeah, that is very good. So thank you. I like that. It's 100% I said. Right. Okay. So as you can see that it matters. Start as soon as possible. It matters. Right. Now moving on to, oops. Oh my God. What have I done? I've gone to the wrong thing.
You've just gone backwards. You just need to go
I
forward.
have. I like that. I think I'm being trigger happy. Okay, bear with. There we go. Okay, here we go. The thing that we've been waiting for. Right. So I'm going to start talking about the children's savings pot. So this is how parents can invest for their children. So the two most common ways is a junior ISA or a children's pensions. So both have advantages and both are incredibly powerful. So I don't know. I should ask because this is all about investing for your children. So do you currently save or invest for your child or grandchild? We'll put another poll question. I love my poll questions. I'm sorry. So do you currently save or invest for your child or grandchild? Okay, regularly. Okay, interesting. Okay, so the majority, 75% said yes, regularly, some occasionally, and then there's some that like to, and then a small percentage is a no. Okay, fabulous. Right. So I'm going to talk about a junior ISA because basically I think a lot of people, because obviously with a junior ISA, excuse me, it allows you to invest up to £9,000 per year for your child. And then the growth is free from capital gains tax. So growth is free from capital gains tax. And then the children gains access at 18. So this is where most parents have an issue because they're like, oh, my child gets the money at 18 and yada, yada. However, here's the best part. So say, for instance, if you're my client and your child, you start investing for your child. When your child is 18, guess who they speak to when they turn 18 before they take the money? They speak to Kiki, the financial planner. Children don't listen to you. My children don't listen to me at all. Even though I'm a financial planner, they do not listen to me. So children listen to other people. So imagine if your child, their first meeting at 18 years old, they come to speak to a financial planner about, oh, and I ask them questions, what do you want to do with your money? I think we should do A, B, C, D. And you'll be surprised at what the child is going to come up with and be like, oh, actually, do you know what? I don't think I should go and spend the money and stuff. Which is something that we didn't get, when we were growing up. We didn't turn 18 and end up sitting to a financial planner. I didn't know what a financial planner was until I decided to become one. So, so there's advantages to that. So then, so if, so I'll give you an example, right? So if you're a parent and if you invested £50 per month from birth until the child is 18, so if we assume growth of like 5% after charges, so the fund could potentially grow to be around 17 to 18,000 by age 18. Okay, this is when you started from birth. And then if the same parent invested £100 per month, the amount could be around 35 to 36,000. And then somebody who invests £200 per month, and that could potentially be around 70,000 at when they turn 18. So the point isn't about the exact figures because investments returns aren't guaranteed. The point is that the power of starting early and being consistent, of course, investments returns because they're not guaranteed, but the values go up and down. But then it shows the impact of starting early and investing consistently. And investing consistently, this is one of the strongest examples for this presentation, I think, because it tells you how much you are likely to have. Obviously, I couldn't do an example because doing an example means me using another child to do that. And then I can't just do an example. I have to have a child's information to do that. But then this is based on ones that I have done that I've given you the information about. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, moving on. So then we have children's pension. A lot of parents are not aware that you can start paying for your children's pension. So I love this the most because I also started doing this for my children. So yes, you can invest into their cash ISAs and they get that money at 18. I don't come from a rich family background. We don't have generational wealth, but I started doing my generational pension wealth because the way I look at it is your child will not access this money at all because they will touch the money when I'm long gone, when I'm dead, my children are going to enjoy what I have invested for them. However, the way I look at it is why not start your own generational pension wealth? Because you start paying into a pension for your child, right? Over a long term, when your child gets to a certain age, when they start working and they have their own children, they will start also investing for their children because you've given them a great start. I'm sure you've had people you work with who have, I don't know, they're 21, 22, and they have 250,000 pension. And then there you are working hard as, and you don't have anywhere near as that. It's because their parents started early. So you could do the same and then help your children start. But then the nice part is knowing that I think by the time our children get to age 67, maybe they would have changed the retirement date by then. It'll probably be 80 by then, but at least you've invested for them. Also, because you had a longer term for compounding, so meaning that your child is likely to have way more money at that point than somebody, so the maximum you can put into a child's pension is 2,880 because you get the tax relief. So the actual amount that goes into a child's pension is 3,600 because money that goes into a pension is not taxed. So it's basically free money because you're paying from your taxed income. So you've already paid tax. So you're paying for your tax income and then you get that 20% back. So you only put 2,880. You don't have to do it all the full amount. You do it monthly. You can put as little as £50. But then, if you put £100, that £100 is effectively £125 because the £25 is automatically added. So we automatically added that for you. You don't have to go to HMRC to claim this 20%. So it's automatically added. So in effect, you've put £100, but it's actually £125. I don't know why that keeps coming up. So it's in effectively £125. So the upside to this is you have decades for this to grow. The government don't give you free money. Why not? Why say no to free money? You put some money for your child, you put your £100, they get the £25. That's free money. And it's not based on how much income you earn. It's based on you don't need to prove the income to pay into your child's pension. Hence why the maximum you can put in is 3,600 per year, but you put in 2,880 without proving your income. So this is the best way. So you can do a junior pension alongside a junior ISA. Because if you're worried that, oh, they'll take the money at 18 and go and blow it with somebody, then you have this junior pension that you could do where by the time they have access to this money, they are grown-ups, understand money, understand everything. So there's always for you to do that. So, but then imagine if your child gets to the retirement fund, I mean, I don't know. I think any child is going to be happy because when they go to work, they will be like, my parents started a retirement fund for me. I'm well ahead of my peers, of everybody else. And I think that's good because when you're giving your child a retirement fund before they've even started to work, I think that's the best thing a parent can gift to their child. And you get back your 20%, which goes to your child. I think it's a win-win. If you spend £50, I don't know, in Tesco buying chocolates and sweets, it's just gone. But then if you put £50 into the pension plus the 20%, I think it makes more sense. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So now I'm going to go to life insurance. So building wealth is important, but then protecting your wealth is also as important. So financial planning isn't just about what happens if everything goes right. It's also about preparing for the unexpected. So a lot of people don't prepare for the unexpected, you know. So because most people insure their phones, you insure your holiday, but you don't, I don't know what's going on in my mouth. You insure your holiday, you insure your mobile phone, you insure everything else, but you forget to insure the thing that's paying for all those things. Okay. So everybody knows about income protection. So this supports you financially if you're able to work due to illness or injury. Then you have the critical illness and life insurance. I'm not going to go too deep into that. I want to talk because we're talking about your children. So I'm going to go into the family income benefit. So family income benefit is one that people are not aware of. So family income benefit is basically one where, so you have two parents, right? Maybe the husband is the main breadwinner and the wife is not, or you're both working, but normally one earns more money than the other one. So you could have a family income benefit that pays a certain amount, not over your income. So you could set it up to say, okay, £2,000 a month, right? So that's benefits like 24,000 per year. And then that is tax-free. So it's not taxed because the money, you've already been taxed by when you paid money into it. So the premiums that you're paying from your tax money. So when you die, yes, you have your life insurance that is going to be given a lump sum and stuff to your family, or mortgage protection that pays off your mortgage. However, will your children be able to continue living the lifestyle they were accustomed to when you were alive? Because when you're gone and your wife was working part-time 2 days a week, and you are the main breadwinner, now all of a sudden, yes, the house is paid off. However, what about the income to look after the children? Or you both die, and then somebody within you, the grandparents that are looking after the children, do they have the income to look after your children? If your child is used to going to 2 holidays a year, 1 holiday a year, or whatever they're used to having, or going for extra lessons with Lara and all these, these after school things, how are you going to be able to pay for those? So a family income benefit is basically pays an income to your loved ones every month. So it'll be like I've given an example of £2,000. So £2,000 every month until your youngest child is 23 years old, because we assume they're going to go to university. So it will pay you £2,000 every month. So if you die, your child is 5 years old. So all the way till your child is 23, that income is paid, every month. So it's one that's worth looking at because people aren't aware of it. Obviously, things like income protection, yes, you need to have income protection because that supports, all your other things that you're insuring. So you need to have income protection to help if you're unable to work due to illness or whatever, then your income protection gets to pay you an income every month. So these are also important. So when you're thinking about your family, you also have to think about this family income benefit because it is very, very important. And I know nobody here is aware of that one because people don't know about it. Right, I'm going to ask a question, right? So if your income stopped tomorrow due to illness, how long could you maintain your lifestyle? Okay. Interesting. Right, so I think this question basically makes you stop and think like, oh, do I need to have some saving? That emergency fund that I talked about, in order for you to be able to sustain yourself. But then after that period of 3 months, because the majority have got 1 to 3 months. So after the 3 months, what's going to happen after that? How are you going to look after yourself? So you need to think about things like income protection. They're not even expensive. They're, depending on your, I don't know, your age and your medical history and stuff, because obviously they have to do underwriting. However, it's worth having. So even if you're paying £100 a month, if that £100 a month is going to give you a peace of mind of, you can only cover yourself for 3 months. After that, what happens? You can never go back to work. How are you going to look after your children? Because you have to think about the children. What are you going to do for your children if you are unable to work? Right, so I'm going to go move on to the next one, which is estate planning. So estate planning is not just about wealthy people. So if you own anything at all, you have an estate. So whatever you own, you have an estate. Because some people think, oh, it's only for the rich people. No, you own a house, you have an estate. You own a car, you have an estate. So whatever you own, whether you own a plot of land, it's your estate. So estate planning, it's just simply deciding what happens to your assets and wishes when you're no longer there, because most people don't think about that. They just think, oh, well, estate planning is, I don't know, it's for the rich people. It's not for people like Simon Cowell, it's for everybody. Whether you have a pension, you have an estate. Okay, so basically, that's what it is. It's about deciding what happens to your assets and wishes after you pass away, not just for the wealthy. If you own anything, you have an estate. It gives control, avoids legal delays and confusion, because when you sort it out, when you're gone, you don't want to leave a mess. You don't want to leave your children worried. You don't want to leave you don't want to leave a mess. You need to make sure everything is kind of in place. Right. I'm gonna ask another question. Do you currently have a valid will in place? Because I know a lot of people don't tend to have a will. Okay, so right, we've got 70% without a will, and some that have started but not completed, and then we have 10% that does have a will. So this is important. You need to have a will because a will decides what happens to your estate if anything, if something happened to you. So you need to have that because I don't know, because people assume that your wishes will automatically happen. That's not always the case. So without planning, the law decides. And I don't think you want the law deciding on who gets what, you know. The law decides who gets what if you don't have a will. And I think it's important to have, so you should make a will. And then also the other thing you should have is you should keep your pension nominations updated because everyone who has a pension you get a nomination form from your employer. Just get one, and then you write who you want on there. If you've had additional children, make sure this is up to date and consider having trust. So if you have life insurance, you need to consider having a trust because that's if you have a life insurance, you need to put it in trust because if you don't put it in trust, it will form your estate. So if you have a life insurance for 50,000, no, 500,000, let's say, and then you have your estate as well. Obviously, I'm not going to go deep into estate planning, but if you have that life insurance, that 500,000 will be added to your estate. So therefore, your children are going to pay 40% tax over a life insurance that all you need is a simple form. You call Aviva, Legal and General, whoever you have your life insurance with, pick up the phone, call them, it's free, and say, can I have, I want to put my life insurance in trust. Can you send me the forms? They send you the forms, you complete them, you send them. So when you die, 500,000 is out of your estate. HMRC are not going to charge 40% inheritance tax on that amount because you've written it in trust. So it is important to put things in a trust. Very important. See, make a will. Use your everybody has an annual gifting allowance. Use your annual gifting allowance. Consider using trust. I've already explained about nominations to be updated because sometimes if you get married, you have an updated nomination. If you got divorced and then now your ex-wife is going to get 100% of your pension, I don't think you want that. If you've had children and then you put it when you had two children and then you have another child, an accidental child, you want to put it on there as well on that pension nomination because if you don't, that child is not going to get anything because the pension provider will go by what you have on your nomination form. So it is important to always make sure that your children are all included on that so that it doesn't cause any issues or any delays at all. So, so if you're separated, I don't think anybody wants their ex to get anything that they have worked hard for. So always make sure that you have a will because it is important. So I cannot say this enough about wills. So this is what happens if you pass away without a will, right? There's these rules called intestacy rules that apply. Your estate will be divided according to fixed rules, irrespective of intentions. So you're literally having the government decide who gets what, So if you have a will, you want it to go to those that you intend it to go to. So things like, I don't know, let's say you have a cousin or somebody that you want to leave something to, they won't get anything because the laws of intestate tends to go differently. I'm not going to go into them, but they decide who inherits what, you know. So I don't know, I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm not going to go through that trust, the wills. So basically, I'll just go through the trust. So trust is a legal arrangement that allows assets to be looked after for beneficiaries. So they can help with control, succession planning, and in some circumstances, inheritance planning. So trust can be very useful, but they need to be appropriate for the family circumstances. I'm not going deep into what trusts are because that's complicated. So I guess obviously I had to do like a basic, um, because we're basing it on children. So it was more like on investing for your children and what you can do for your child, and then doing trust because that's also important for your child to make sure that you have a trust. So, there's different ways of gifting, and passing over things by using trusts. But obviously, this is not the session to go deep into that. So I don't want to go into all that. So um, I don't know. I hope you've understood the basics of investing and the importance of compounding and why you should, invest in stocks and shares and stuff. Why it is good because then it helps your money grow for the longer term, and also what returns you get with the examples that I've given you over just having your money sitting in a cash ISA or in cash, or even because a lot of people have junior ISAs for their children, but their junior ISAs are cash ISAs, which is not really giving you anything. Whereas if you got that money invested, because we need to close the gap between the wealthy and the not wealthy, or the people that have access to information, the people that don't have access. So this is what I'm trying to do, because obviously by putting money in a junior ISA, it's not, I stress this enough, it's not for the rich, it's for everybody. You don't need £50 a month into your child's ISA is something. Over the long term, it will give your child some money. Like the example I gave, just doing £50 from birth with compounding, your child is likely to have 18,000, which could help with when they're going to university. It will help with the university. If they don't want to go to university, it could help for a deposit for their first home, so it helps with a lot. So I hope what I've given is enough. I know I didn't get too deep into certain things because obviously we don't want to make it into, because I don't know where most people are with investing and stuff. So I think the basics of what compounding is, which most people don't know what that is, as you saw with the example of the 1p and the other amount, how compounding can allow you to have more money at the end. So I don't know. So the best time is to start early. Small actions taken consistently over long periods can create extraordinary outcomes. And the second best thing, I think the best time is today, really, because now with what so I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very
If
much, Kiki. I
that's all
appreciate it.
right.
I'm just going to go through a few questions in the chat that came up during your presentation. Jen said, what's the maximum amount you can invest in a pension for your child in a financial year?
2,880,
Okay. And then the
which works
20%.
out to so it's 3,600. So the maximum that a parent or grandparent, whoever, is putting in is 2,880. That's the
Okay.
maximum.
All right. This is not a question. It was just a statement when you mentioned when their children are 18. So Kemi said, I was looking into junior ISA, but then when I saw the kids get it at 18, I just got put off as I think 18 might be still too young. So if your child doesn't listen to you, how will they listen to your advice of speaking to an advisor? And actually, to be sincere with you, I had the same hesitation when I started for my son. But one thing I did say to him, and I warned him, when you're 18, we're going to the bank together. We're going to withdraw that money and we're going to put it in a LISA. Obviously, we hope LISA is still in existence then, the lifetime ISA.
Yeah.
So he can then use it hopefully for his first house. But obviously, what do you have to say about this?
So I think because like nowadays, because like I do things where I go to schools and do like, teaching children in schools of how the importance of investing and stuff. And then I'm planning on doing an event for children, which is like obviously like this, with parents present, obviously, but where to kind of teach the younger generation
Mm,
how to invest, importance about investing and what they can do to invest. You'd be surprised. Like I have my 6-year-old niece who, because obviously I practice on her, she is my biggest critic. She'll be like, no, Auntie Kiki, I'm not doing that. I'd rather go and buy a Barbie. But because when you explain to say to her, oh, do you want to be a millionaire? She'll be like, oh my God, yes, I want to be a millionaire. So now when she gets like £20, for a birthday, she'll be like, Auntie, can you put it into my investment? I'll be like, yes, I'll do that. So it's simple things by explaining simple things to children, they will understand. But I think now schools are also being more aware of children are not being taught the basics of finance. So now they're starting to kind of like try to make sure that happens, hence why they allow financial advisors to come to schools and do little sessions with the children. So I think it's about like I said before that if your child gets to 18, they get to sit with the financial advisor. If, say, for instance, you have used the financial advisor for their junior ISA, because when they're 18, there's nothing you can do about it. It's their money and you
mm,
cannot control them, because you lose control. And they know that when I'm 18, you can't control me. So I think it's about discussing, because as parents we teach our children, because you know your children better than anybody. So you could have two children. I have two kids and one child is a spender, the other one is a saver. So if I give my children the same amount of money, my youngest one should rather go and every all her friends are going to the movies or to whatever she's going. My oldest chooses which she goes to because she would rather, so she has more money because she would rather invest her money, but they're getting the same
information.
information. So it just depends with the child. But at the same time, she does understand that, she's really bad for money and she needs to invest and she needs to do this and that. But what she doesn't know is, because what you don't do is you don't really tell your child that you've got a junior ISA for them now, do you? So you just sort of like talk about this info, these discussions with them to say, oh, this is what happens if we invested your money and we did this and that, because you don't want them to know that you have a junior ISA for them, because then they're now expecting something. So at least teach them. And then obviously when they're nearing the time, then you could, I don't know, introduce, or you ask simple questions like, if you had 20,000 today, what are you going to do? Because that tells you where your child's head is at, because you'll be shocked. My child will probably tell you that she would rather go to Dubai or something. This is my youngest, because she would rather go there and go shopping. Whereas my oldest would be like, no, I will put this much. She would rather go to like the seaside or something because it's better. And she is the stingiest person I've ever met in my life. Like she's very stingy. I love it, don't get me wrong. But then they get the same information. I mean, I'm not saying my youngest doesn't save. She does, but not as much as her sister. She will blow 80% and then probably 20%, you know. But
Thank you for that. Another, I need to ask, can a pension be used as collateral or an asset against something? I'm not sure if I'm using the correct terminology.
no.
No? Okay.
What do you
If
mean
Anita,
using
if you're
as
still on,
collateral?
if you can shed a bit more light on that question. And I'll quickly go
Mm.
to the next one. What's a gift allowance?
So you're allowed to gift £3,000 per year. So this is what you're allowed, and it doesn't, so you're allowed, so there's different types of gifting. So there's 3,000 a year is maximum you can gift, and that falls off your estate. Or you can give as many £250 as possible, and then they don't form part of your estate. It's your money, but it's kind of governed anyway.
I mean, when you say it's while you're alive, right? Or
Yeah, while you're alive. So it's like this. How can I put it? So if you have like a lot of money and then you gift someone the money, right? So there's a certain amount maximum that you can gift. So you have, okay, let me go into estate planning. So everyone has 325,000 allowance for estate planning. Okay. I hope I'm making sense. So each person in this country will have 325,000 allowance. So if your estate is over 325,000, you will pay inheritance tax at 40%. However, if you have a home and you want to leave that home to your children, so they have to be your direct descendants, not your cousins, not your uncles, not your sister, your children or adopted children or foster children, then you get another 175,000, which now makes your total allowance 500,000. So anything you have above 500,000, you pay inheritance tax on. And then if you're a married couple, that amount becomes double. So for married couple, you have 1 million. So you have 1 million of your estate combined before it pays inheritance tax. So you're allowed to gift up to the maximum of 325,000 because that's your allowance. However, you have to survive for 7 years. And then that falls out of your estate.
okay.
So if you die, you've gifted, I don't know, you've gifted for like 300,000. If you die within 7 years, that is brought back into your estate. But
Oh,
then obviously, and then it forms part of your estate. So there's gifting where you're allowed to give £3,000. You can give £3,000 to anybody. That's the maximum you can gift without it being, so that's an allowable amount. Or you can give 250s, or you can, I don't know, some people pay rent for their children, so you can give an income as long as it's not over your living expenses, then that's fine.
okay. Thank you. I think we only have time for one more question. So Anita has gotten back. She said, I have an American friend who
Mhm.
said he has used various assets as surety against another purchase, such as a house mortgage.
So that's when you use things like a SAS.
Yeah.
So that's like, so there's things like a SAS that you can borrow. So if you have a certain amount of money in your pension, you could use that. But SASs are quite complex.
Yeah.
So if you have a SAS, which is a pension, but it's called a SAS, it's very complex and it's kind of like higgledy-piggledy. But yes, you can. So if you have money in your pension, you could use that to, because you can borrow that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I
Mhm.
think that's it for this evening. I mean, the information you shared is very insightful. The power of compounding. I mean, personally, we had a guest a few years back, and I remember 2018 where I signed up to do this for my kids, and this is 8 years down the line, and it's grown. And then I started with £25 a month because that's what I could afford then, So time will always come and go, and
Mhm.
as you said, it's the only constant um, commodity that we have. So thank you so much for your time, Kiki, this evening. And how can people reach you? I think you've got that. Do you want to tell us a little bit how people can reach you before we round up?
Okay, so if you scan the QR code, that gives you my details or my phone number. So you've got my mobile number on there and my email address. So you could contact me on there if you want to, you know, get in touch. I'm only available Monday to Friday.
Only.
9 a.m. till 5 p.m.
That's 5 days a week. Thank you so much. Thank you. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. We also send an email to those who registered so that you can have Kiki's details, and I think the recording will also be on our website as well. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We would like you to put into practice and take action on everything Kiki has spoken to us, from opening an ISA for our children or for yourself if that's what you want, as well as will planning, life insurance, will, estate planning for yourself, and protecting your family and everything that you own. We want to say have a good evening, and thank you once again, Kiki, for the time you spent with us this evening. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. And I hope everyone has gained something. I know I didn't go too deep into things. And then I just kind of went into like some stuff because obviously we were talking about children. So I didn't want to go into, because when I do a session for like adults, which is not to do with children, then it's different. So I think this is kind of similar because I do talk about compounding and the different asset classes, which are the shares and stuff. So yeah. So I
Great.
hope I've helped somebody because my goal is to help as many people as possible to have access to advisors. I know a lot of people think you need to be rich. You don't. I'm not rich. So, you
We're
know.
getting there.
But I
So yeah,
started a pension generational wealth for my children. So my children are going to be
exactly.
okay.
The next
But
generation will benefit from the actions we take today. So thank you. Have a good
right.
evening. We won't keep you longer.
All right.
And yeah, thank you, Kiki, once again.
Thank you very much. Bye.